Wow, what's an episode? That was when I first saw that this episode was going to be directed by Mark Mylod, who was the person who pieced together episode 3, which was centered around Logan's death. I had a feeling it was going to be a good one. This episode was focused around Logan's funeral, a moment that we had all been waiting for since he died. This episode offered more than an emotional whirlwind. It marked the hostility and embodying of Logan that would need to be present within every single one of the children moving forward. So with that, let's recap, break down and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Succession Season 4, Episode 9, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This was an episode that really did mark the changing point in the science, the division being solidified between the siblings and a chance for each and every one of them to show that they were strong. But it didn't go to plan. I'm going to start by discussing the siblings, as I feel their dynamic within this episode was crucial to the smooth execution of it, and I think the state that they were left in is what's going to be so important. So the season finale. Let's start with Roman. Roman started this episode being on top of the world, quite literally in his apartment. Upon arriving at the church, the man who had once exuded an air of authority, boasting about his control and influence over presidential matters, was overcome by an overwhelming sense of despair. His eyes fixated on his father's coffin, and the painful realization washed over him like a tidal wave. Daddy's absence would persist throughout the entire 4th season since Logan had tragically breathed his last. Roman was the calmest, coolest, and most well-composed out of the siblings when it came to the understanding that Logan was gone. However, as he fixated on his pre-grief, it became clear that an impending implosion was inevitable, reminiscent of the emotional breakdown he experienced during his time with Matsson on the mountaintop. In this particular episode, his demeanor regressed to that of a vulnerable child, intensifying the distressing nature of the situation. I found it to be such an emotional moment when he was standing over the coffin being comforted by his siblings. Skiff's reaction to Roman being upset was so raw, and it felt so real too. The upset in Horizon was so sad to look at. That then marked the direction that Roman had for the final part of the episode. He was on his own, and you could say, moved to the back of the car. A place where Kendall was at the start of the episode because he looked like the one that was originally going to crumble in the public space as everything was going wrong for him. It was only right at the end of the episode when he was on the receiving end of Kendall's harsh words, where he was told that he messed up and could have cost. The both of the men can support that. He went outside into the public amongst the chaos that was unfolding in the street, and he went amongst it. This was the chaos that he had a large hand in contributing to, looking on as if he was proud, showing that he himself felt he was good for something Rune needed to let out. His anger and frustration that was built up inside of him after what he had been through that day, and taunting all of him and as his supporters and being hit was the best way for him to do that. Roman is going to go one of two ways in the finale. I don't think he has what Logan had within him. However, we must remember at the end of episode 2 Logan selected Roman to be with him, so I wonder if that's going to be something that he keeps inside of his mind. I feel he may even look to break away from Kendall, as we saw him mention about there only being one cherry moving forward. Roman showed a large weakness in this episode, and I don't know if he's going to be able to come back from it. Now let's discuss Kendall. I thought Kendall's growth and development in this episode was phenomenal, and extremely interesting to watch unfold. What started with him being at rock bottom, fearful and regretful of what he had contributed to the chaos in the city, and also upset over the fact that Raoul wasn't attending the funeral. We saw extreme emotion being present within him from the off. He was regretting his actions of assisting in the support of Mencken and was fearful of the repercussions. However, as the episode moved on, we slowly saw him start to grow into himself more, and the dynamic changed within his mind. Kendall was in a state of grief as everybody was, but the mindset was altered. When he was up on the stand giving a eulogy, he was originally going to read Roman's words, but he spoke from his heart instead, which I feel was an important moment for the character, showing that he doesn't actually need Roman. He's carrying dead weight with him. Kendall has had to do it on his own twice now, when he was giving the speech for Living Plus and also now on stage on his own. Picking up the pieces after his brother, Kendall spoke about his father and the tough, harsh nature that he had. But he went on to talk about everything that Logan made over the years, the money and the desire that he had to do better, claiming that Logan made life happen with all that he created, including his 3 siblings. But the most important thing and the moment that changed Kendall in this episode was when he said that Logan was a brute, and that he hoped that he had some of the force that Logan had within him inside of himself, something that I firmly believe Kendall does have. I questioned if Kendall was a true killer, but I think he's slowly showing that he can be that person as in when he needs to be, especially when fighting for what's important to him. As from that moment on, Kendall was no longer grieving like he was before. He knew of what Shiv was planning on doing with Matsson, and appointing herself as CEO said that the deal would still be able to go through, and he wanted to do all that he could to stop it still. Kendall went around appointing people as if he knew that what he was doing was a given. He reappointed Collins to work with him, and he also got Hugo back on board, with him having his outburst on Roman saying how he messed it up for them, and that Minkin may have lost his support for the brothers due to Roman looking weak in front of the people, and there being a video that was being circulated. He hammered down on his brother something, which even Roman was surprised to hear. But Kendall wants the company, and he's going to do all that he can to ensure that he can get it, even if that means hurting a few feelings and causing rifts in the family, like Roman said about Kendall maybe not being alongside him. Kendall said the exact same thing. So their plan is surely set to fail, as the both of them are not on the same page at all. Let's remember Kendall said life isn't nice, it's contingent. So he's very much trained to follow in Logan's footsteps by Ingbat Shiv. Just like the other two siblings, Skiff's involvement was crucial, and I feel her head was swinging to different sides a lot throughout this episode. There were moments where Kendall was speaking during the eulogy that I thought she was realizing how much they needed to be together, but it ultimately didn't last. Shiv had such raw emotion when it came to the loss of her father, in a response that I would say a lot of people may have in real life. Her heart was on her sleeve and she had tears in her eyes throughout the majority of it. She was still working with Matsson and looking to push the deal through, and she found a way that she felt she would be able to get it through, which was by her being appointed as CEO, an American CEO to an American company, something that looked far more appealing to Mencken. There was a really interesting moment where she spoke about her pregnancy and the idea of being a mother. She said how she would push them off to the side, barely see them, take no maternity leave, and even work during labor. There was also a conversation she had with her mother where she said how she would just keep her distance and do what she called the family way, with her also having a drink as well. It does make me question if she's just doing all of this as a front. She experienced firsthand what it was like to be pushed to the side as a child, and she even mentioned it during her speech. So I feel she's doing it to get on Madison's side, get under Tom's skin, and also her mother's skin. During the funeral, she wasn't supposed to get up and do a speech. It was supposed to be Roman. However, with Kendall getting up and delivering a speech, ultimately saving the day, I feel the only reason she followed on after him for a short, brief, and sweet while was to be able to show her presence and strength in front of Mencken. Even though she had emotions that laced throughout it, it felt more like a power play. Was grieving Logan, and it was clear to see that he obviously chose to not go to the funeral because he wasn't going to be able to handle it, masking his emotion with the excuse of work. We know that Tom's emotions are real, as he had that raw emotion on the day that Logan died. She have allowed Tom to go back to the apartment looking out for him. However, on the other hand, it might have again been something that she did to not of somebody who was crying around her, which would ultimately impact her image, with it looking like Mencken is siding with herself and Madison. She definitely has the upper hand moving forward, but I wonder at what cost is it going to come at. I still have no clue who is going to ultimately end up winning this game. Overall review. I thought this was such a great episode. It flipped the dynamic of all of the siblings, and despite being extremely emotional at points, you couldn't help but wipe away the tears and continue being so invested in the scheming that was taking place at all corners of the church. I thought the scene where every single individual was crowded around Mencken one by one, looking for their piece of the pie show. Just how chaotic it all was, and the fact that things may not end up going any of their ways. I was glad to see Carrie again, albeit if it was for a cameo appearance, but we know she's still out there. Is she going to play a large role in the finale? I don't think so. I feel that could be it from her. I don't know which direction it's going to go in, and I also don't know how they're going to do it in the space of one episode, but I'm excited to see how they can bring it on. So there you have it, Succession Season 4, Episode 9, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as endings, explain theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to me Twitter, at brainpilot_ and tweet me what Shawa movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cuts, you're getting a dedicated video. Then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below.